Yeah, so I think that thrillers should be quite dark and quite urban. Like there's a lot of alleyways and can make the villain seem quite suspicious. For example, like in Dark Knight, the Joker is very suspicious because he always meets like underground and stuff like that, and in very tall buildings, and they're usually like quite wrecked and ruined.
I quite like urban thriller films because I think it just makes that sort of that closed-in space. It's a bit more sort of edgy, and I like it to have like quite bad weather as well because I think it gives like quite a menacing vibe to it. An example of this would probably be like some of the London scenes in Skyfall.
Yeah, so I expect there to be like usually a hero and definitely a villain, and sometimes a female character like a heroine. And usually the villain is quite psychopathic. Like if you have a serial killer, then that makes quite good for the film actually. So yeah.
Typical characters would probably be mainly a hero, obviously, a villain, and probably like a sort of like a damsel in distress type character. Probably like the film Thor, because it's got Loki, Thor, and then the other girl, I can't remember what her name is. I know she's played by Natalie Portman, but that's all I know. She's in it, and she's obviously the damsel in distress. So them three main characters are important, but obviously you have other characters as well.
I think that music in a thriller should fade in and out. It shouldn't really be silent or like completely musical. But yeah, because it's good for like contrast. Like a lot of the time, like when particular actions are happening, like if a killer's killing someone, there will be quite dramatic music. But at some points, you might want there to be silence, and it really depends if it's diegetic or non-diegetic, really.
Well, I think it mainly depends on what film it is, or what the actual picture's about. For example, like The Walking Dead, they use silence quite a lot because it gives that sort of tense feeling, like something's about to jump out, something's about to happen. Whereas in something like Seven, the music is integral to the plot, like it's quite twisted, scary music which relates to the maniacal attitudes of the character in the beginning, which is the villain. So I think it all depends on what your picture is about.
Yeah, I really like The Dark Knight because I really like the villain in it. I really like the Joker because he's quite psychopathic, but he's also quite funny, which kind of makes you feel a little bit like uncomfortable because he's doing such like horrific things. So yeah, I just really like him. But also, I do like in the last Batman film, Catwoman, because you don't really get a lot of female heroes usually. She's quite a good hero to have, I think.
Favourite thriller film? I don't know, probably, I know it's a bit of a weird choice, but probably Goldfinger, because it's different to modern thriller films, because modern thriller films are all just about action and everything, whereas Goldfinger is a bit more classic and it's a bit more intuitive than just action, plus it's very iconic as well, so yeah, probably Goldfinger.
I expect villains to be quite obvious. I think that they should be actually known in the thriller film. I think it makes you more uneasy, really. Sometimes when you don't know who they are, it becomes like more like a mystery, and it doesn't really maybe sometimes gets a little bit dull.
I don't know. Once again, I think it depends on the film. Like, if you've got something like a superhero movie, you want to know who the villain is quite near the beginning, so then you get into the story. Whereas if it's something like, say, Blofeld in Spectre or in any of the James Bond films, it's quite good to have that mysterious side, because you're like, who is it? You know, what's going to happen, and you're quite intrigued by the villain. So I don't know. Yes, again, I think it depends entirely on what your picture's about.
I don't really expect him to be male, but a lot of the time they are. For example, actually in The Dark Knight Rises, one of the villains was actually female and she looked like a good character. So I guess it may be quite. Oh, that made me really bad. Sorry.
I don't know. I don't know if it's really what I expect. I think it's what the whole audience expects, because history teaches us that the villain in telefilms has usually been male. I can't actually really think of any that have a female villain. The only film I can think of that has a female villain is probably The 101 Dalmatians, which isn't really a thriller. But I don't know. I think it would be quite an interesting prospect to have a female villain, because it's a bit different. But I don't know.
She can either be female or quite young, so in Taken it's it's his child, but she's also a girl as well. Just as to be somebody who's quite vulnerable usually. Yeah, and that's really about it.
Not always. Not always. The victim can be male, but can be female as well. The hero can be male or female. I don't really think it matters. As long as the film's got a good plot and it's interesting, it doesn't really matter about the gender of the characters.
I think they do, but I don't think you notice them as much. So they do impact you, but mainly without you knowing. For like a lot of point of view shots, you don't actually know, but they do make you feel like somebody's being spied on or somebody's spying on you almost.
Yeah, because although it isn't always obvious, I do think it makes the film better and more interesting.